Welcome to Making More, the podcast where high-performing business owners and visionary executives share how they're building more than just bottom lines. I'm your host, Billy Fisher, an engineering leader turned business and executive coach, and I'm guided by a personal mission to help leaders create clarity, build forward momentum, and make more of what matters most. Today, I'm joined by the unstoppable Brittany Fowler, a powerhouse in communication, connection, and culture. Brittany's built her career helping executives and organizations turn everyday interactions into real opportunities for growth. She's a network facilitator, a leadership coach, and a natural connector who understands that the strongest leaders don't just build businesses, they build relationships. In this episode, we're going to dive into the art of authentic networking and personal branding for those executives. Brittany, welcome to Making More.
Thank you so much for having me. I am incredibly excited to be here. And I'm really excited about what you're doing with this podcast, Making More. I think it's a conversation that we don't get to have often. So the fact that you have built a platform off of that concept, I think is absolutely genius. And I couldn't be happier to be here and spill some secrets of what it's like to be a phenomenal networker and phenomenal network facilitator. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Again, I got to meet you through a mutual friend. His name is Joey Bates. He's actually going to be on episode 5 coming up, releasing next week. So I'm excited to be able to feature him and just to, again, share that mutual connection with you. It was something that he said, you got to meet this person. She's unbelievable. And it's absolutely been true from every interaction I've had with you from that moment on. So once again, thank you, Brittany.
Thank you. And thank you, Joey Bates.
Absolutely. Shout out there. So tell me for starters, kind of what your role was at your previous organization. I know you recently went through a pretty major career and life change. And so getting used to that adjustment. But tell me what it was you were doing first when you started your own podcast.
So when I started my own podcast, it originally was called The Job Chicks, and my co-host was Melissa Bassano. She had spent many, many years in the pageant world before she became an executive coach. And I actually started off in the realm of the performing arts as well. And then I transitioned into being a high school teacher, and then I became an executive coach with Browning Associates. And Melissa and I had a very common background. And we, the blend of the entertainment and executive coaching, we found ourselves repeating ourselves over and over and over again with CEOs, COOs, CTOs. And her and I said, you know what, we need to just make a podcast out of this. So that way, not only our current clients can go back, rewind, press play as many times as they want, so they have their own coach in their back pocket, but we wanted to open up the floodgates for this information to other executives who weren't our clients. And that is when The Job Chicks was birthed. We did 2 seasons as The Job Chicks, and then we underwent a name change to Power Moves Podcast. So you can currently find all of our episodes, all 3 seasons, under Power Moves Podcast, and you will see myself and Melissa Bassano there.
Okay. And that gets to come with you now still, right? That wasn't something that was owned by the company. You keep that.
I get to keep that, yes. So when we initially started, we did have several former clients of Browning Associates on our episodes, but we were doing it independently. And it wasn't until season 3 that we decided to join forces with Browning. So I know it's a little bit of an odd scenario, but nonetheless, it is mine and Melissa's podcast. So it still will be existing out there indefinitely, even though I have just recently transitioned out of Browning and into a new role doing strategic partnerships.
That's fantastic. And we can talk about that as much as you want, but I'm curious, one more question on the podcast. Is there a teaser for season 4 coming soon?
There will not be. Melissa is branching off, and she's actually going to start her own podcast. It's called The Healing Equation, and she's going to talk all things health and healing, which I'm so incredibly happy for her and excited for her. That's something she's passionate about. And for me, people will have to be on their toes about what's going to come next. I have a few different things in the works in terms of the podcast realm. So there are a few things up in the air right now for me in the podcast world. So the audience will just have to, stay tuned for what's to come.
Okay, very good. Real quick, too, before we get too far, I want to ask about the guardian angel over your shoulder and the significance of that picture.
Yeah. So I am very, very spiritual. I like to say spiritual, not religious. I am a born-again Christian. So the whole concept of God is absolutely everything. To me, it's how I live my life. I wouldn't want to do life without God. So as a born again Christian, I like to surround myself with things that are very godly.
Well, that's fantastic. And I'm happy too, because I get to kind of inject a little bit of that in most of these episodes that I've recorded so far. It just seems like the topic just comes up. I don't know what God is doing in that way, but it comes
I
up.
love
And so I like to kind of tell people that, yeah, I was raised Catholic, and so many people were raised Catholic, but then fell away from the church. And it wasn't until probably like 2018, after I married my wife, that we found a church in Greenwood that we really loved. And it was not a Catholic church. It was a Bible teaching Protestant evangelical church, right? So very, very modern, very good presentation with everything. And I was drawn to it as much as anything, foolishly enough, because of the production value. Like, they had just a fantastic graphic design team and arts team, and I just was really attracted to everything they were doing. And so it's just been recently that I've kind of had like this spiritual wrestling. We moved away from that church. It's like a 30-minute trip to get up there now. And I find myself sending my son to a Catholic school like I was raised. My wife was not raised Catholic. And it's like, should we just lean all in on the Catholic thing, or should we try and branch out and find another church in Columbus that's like Redeemer was in Greenwood for us? Or what should we do? What should we do? So we're still in the middle of that wrestling. I don't even have a conclusion for the story yet. I'm just rambling.
I love it. So I too was raised Catholic. I went to a Catholic school from kindergarten all the way until my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
And as the saying goes, if your life has not been radically changed by Jesus, you met religion. You didn't meet Jesus. You didn't meet the real Jesus. So I think that there's an awakening happening on the planet right now. And I am ridiculously excited about what is happening with this revival for God and Jesus. And yeah, we could do a whole episode on that. So I guess we'll have to just put a pin in that for another time.
Yeah, let's save that. That'll be something we get back to. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I don't know how often do you lead with that when you're networking?
With my spirituality.
Yeah.
My love of Jesus. How do I lead with that, or do I lead with that with networking? I want to say I don't, but I do wear a cross on my neck.
Okay.
And I wear a lot of Jesus shirts. So
Okay.
I do think naturally those symbols sort of lend themselves to developing conversation. Yeah.
People read that, and it's a part of you. So I think in that way, yes, it's your authentic self.
Yeah, exactly.
What else for the engineer in all of us that doesn't like networking, that gets uncomfortable when they jump into a room full of people and the tables are all bustling with conversation, and we're just like, oh my, that's a lot. Where do I start?
Networking is not about you. Networking is not about you. Well, you know what? This is actually coming full circle right now. So if you are saved and you have met Jesus and you have read the Bible, you totally understand that probably the worst sin is pride. And I think that as we move throughout our career, pride is so at the forefront because it's you making the paycheck for your family at the end of the day. There's no way around that. So I think that there's this strange balance that we have to come to terms with, where we begin and where we end. So when it comes to networking, it's not all about us. It's not about interjecting in the conversation to be like, look how amazing I am. I want to have a seat at the table. I want to talk. Networking is about other people, because you want to bring as much value as you possibly can to as many people as you want to bring as much value to as many people as you can in every conversation you have. And when you start the process of networking by having the belief that it's about you, you have already failed.
Simple as that. I love the value add part. I'm going to say this just to get you. I pride myself on value innovation. That was the name of the group that I led at Toyota the last few years there. And our objective was to find value and eliminate waste across every single piece of our product. And our products were varied, and our products were complicated. And it was every day something different, every day a new fire to fight, but also just such a rewarding thing to realize those value adds and those value cost savings that we could realize. And I think exactly the same for networking. It is about, how can you provide value for the other people in the room? What can you learn about them? What can you discover about what maybe they need, and just, having those meaningful conversations.
Yeah. So if you are at a table and everyone is talking, maybe you're on a work trip and you're at a conference and you're maybe one of two, or maybe you're the only one representing your company, and there's all these other people who seem to know each other and they're all chit-chatting, and you're like, where do I fit in here? Well, you don't need to think about how you fit in there. It's really about them. Lean into the conversation of what they're already talking about. Be a really good listener. And then when you want to interject, you're either going to add a comment that's of value, or if you're like, I don't know anything about what these people are talking about, then when you open your mouth, it should be a question that allows them to deepen the conversation. So again, when you're trying to interject, especially when you are an introvert and socializing is just really uncomfortable for you, I think introverts struggle with, well, how do I introduce myself? What's the right timeline? Again, that's all pride-led. We want to lead with thinking about them, because you will find that when you look at networking through that lens of getting them to talk about themselves and asking them deepening questions, you will start to find a genuine connection to that person, or at least to what they're chatting about. And that's going to make them lean into you. And it will
Reciprocate.
likely, if you're meeting someone for the first time, exactly. When you're meeting somebody for the very first time and you know, it's not a scheduled phone call where you're going to do your introduction at the beginning. Maybe you are interjecting in a conversation and maybe you converse for 15, 20 minutes and there's no introduction whatsoever. Sometimes the introduction happens at the end of the conversation where they're like, you know, this has been so wonderful. Like, we should exchange business cards. Like, tell me your name again. Like, you know, who are you really? So I like to say that there really is no escaping introducing yourself, whether it happens at the beginning of the conversation because it's a planned networking conversation, or it happens at the end because you spontaneously met. I do think that being prepared is everything. So every executive who is trying to become a better networker, I would think long and hard about how you're going to introduce yourself. Because when you introduce yourself, the common pitfalls people fall into is they either undervalue themselves or they over-explain. So we want it to be somewhere in the middle, and you want it to make sense to the other person, because there are very talented people out there, especially with the whole concept of AI and where technology is going. If you start spewing out things that don't make sense to the average person, that probably shouldn't be in your introduction. You might be asking, okay, Brittany, you're telling us what not to do, but what should we do? How do I know where to direct thinking about my introduction? And I would say, think about what you absolutely love to do in what you do. So instead of explaining this big roundabout thing of your job description, explain what you're really passionate about. And I'll give you an example. So I am currently an executive doing strategic partnerships. And instead of explaining the whole business model and where I fit into that when I introduce myself to people, instead, I like to say that everything I love to do for a company really lies at the intersection of really good communication and really good relationship building. I can take a goal that a company has, and wherever there is people and communication, I will add a lot of value to where that is, because at the end of the day, I love people and I love business, and I'm very, very good at communicating. So if I gave that in a nutshell when I introduce myself to someone, that's very relatable. Someone can understand that without needing this whole business model explanation. So when you introduce yourself, make sure it's passion-led and it's about 2 to 3 sentences that people can truly understand. And if they want to ask you more specifics, let them ask you. You don't need to arbitrarily share it.
I love it. Such good advice. And I think your point about introverts is so true. And I think they often don't get out of their own head. And one thing that Focal Point preaches as far as ways to do that is with curiosity and being curious about the other person genuinely and just figure out more about them. Don't make it about you, because I think you're exactly right. And that pride takes over. They get stuck in themselves and they lose focus on the fact that the goal is trying to learn about the other person.
Let's talk about that for a second. The goal, the objective of networking. So everyone's going to have their own objective. And a lot of times with executive networking, it is the objective of landing your next role. And sometimes the objective of executive networking is business development on behalf of your company, whether you own your own company or do business development for a company, it doesn't really matter. Those are the two most likely scenarios. And especially when you are networking with the intent of landing your next executive level role, you have this psychological blockage that's a looming dark cloud over your head that everybody's going to sniff out. And I hear that a lot from executives. Oh, well, I don't like asking people for help. And it's like, well, that's actually not at all what you're going to do when you network. You're not going to just call someone and say, hey, do you have a job for me? Hey, keep me in mind. Hey, here's my resume. You're not going to do that. And if you did do that, it's not going to work anyway. So I think this looming dark cloud follows people that others are going to sense that the only reason why they're networking is because they want something. So again, the pride there is a really big component that can be a setback. So when we network, we have to ask ourselves, what is the objective of this conversation? And I think if you can lay out what your objective is at the very beginning of the conversation as like a general statement, sometimes it can take that looming cloud off, because you're like, oh geez, I'm going to have this great conversation and then I'm going to go in for some type of ask at the end and it's going to feel slimy. So let me give you an example. It might go a little like this. Hey, yeah, I'm super excited that we connected. Cindy said that you would be a really good person to speak to because you are in sales at such and such company. Really interesting, because I have been networking a ton lately. I've been finding a ton of value in it. And specifically, when I network with people in sales, those conversations seem to go really well because, people in sales tend to have lots of at ease qualities that make me feel more comfortable. So again, I'm super happy that Cindy had paired us together. How often do you network? Is this something that you typically do? So I loosely threw in the objective that I have been finding a lot of value in networking lately. And you can even put a because in there. I've really been finding a lot of value in networking lately because one of my goals is to expand my network of people that are in Michigan. I'm looking to move there. My wife just got a job there, and now, I'm really excited about what's possible. And I know Cindy connected us because you're in Michigan. How long have you been in Michigan?
Boom.
Do you see how I did that?
Connected it. The dots are there. And again, I love the scenarios. You're so effective at bringing up the scenarios and just kind of walking us through. Like you said, I think a performing arts background is apparent in your excellence in this category.
Yeah. So you have to know what your objective is ahead of time, because your objective shouldn't be this dark, scary thing that looms over your head and you're like, I'm going to have to go in for the ask at the end and then I'm going to feel slimy. You don't have to. Just say it right at the beginning. There is absolutely nothing wrong with networking with some type of intention.
I think, again, because it comes back to the truth of it, there is intention behind it. And if it is genuine, if it is from the heart, then I think that is going to foster only good connections and good conversation, good communication. It's like you said, when pride gets in the way and it's a transactional thing, if it's selfish or if it is just me, that's the part that kind of drains you. And I think it drains you because you're doing it wrong. So if you can correct that, then it's not going to be such a daunting task networking.
Let's talk about the adding value component a little bit more, because I do think that there's a pitfall when people are preparing for networking conversations. So let's hypothetically say that Cindy did pair you to an executive in Michigan and it's a vice president of sales of a manufacturing company. And I want to do some preparation, and I'm thinking about my objective of what I'd like to slide in there at the beginning. And my coach, Brittany, told me that I have to add value to this conversation. And I'm sort of like sweating 5 minutes before the conversation because I'm looking on this person's LinkedIn profile and they have dad of 3 as their tagline. They don't have a profile photo and they have nothing in their about section. And now I'm freaking out because my coach Brittany told me I have to add value to this person. And I don't have anything. I'm not a dad of 3. I have nothing in common with this person. So I want to say that, when we add value to other people, the most important thing is that it's genuine. And you will find, especially like someone like myself, I network all the time, sometimes without reason. I will network with people because sometimes I find the most value in the most unlikely scenarios. When you add value to other people, it cannot be forced. And there are some conversations you are going to have where there really was no room for you to add value. Maybe they were talking about something that you didn't really have a good connection to offer them, like you didn't have some good insight to offer them. It is valuable enough to still extend some form of value at the end of the call, and it can sound like this. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been really awesome. And like I said, I've been finding so much value in networking, and I'm happy to have you as part of my network. And I just want to let you know that if there's ever anything you think I could be of value to you for, never hesitate to reach out to me. That's it.
Perfect. I think I'm going to use that. I think some outreach messages need to get adjusted is what I'm hearing.
You're not going to add value to everybody, and that's okay. But we live in a very fast-paced world where we're multitasking on all these different things. And I think that a lot of that busyness makes us lose connection with one another. So to end a networking call with someone saying to you, hey, if there's ever anything you think I could do for you, never hesitate to reach out. That feeling that someone gets when they hear that, it's like, wow, like that's like a moment of, all right, I'm going to take her up on that. I'm going to take him up on that. And it just leaves the door wide open. And like I said, that in and of itself is very valuable to people. So you're never going to walk away from a conversation without adding value, because you can always end the networking conversation with that line and it will never be a fail.
Again, such good advice. I think hopefully everybody can take that and use that and just find how effective it will be. Brittany, did you ever come across behavior assessments in your podcast conversations and your work in industry? Have you ever used them? Have you ever dabbled in those dark sciences?
I have never used one for myself, and I have never cared to look at anyone else's. That's not to say I haven't had clients. It's not to say I haven't had clients that have sent me theirs.
Yeah.
But truthfully, because I'm such a people person, I feel like I can get a pretty good sense of how I personally can help somebody within a 15 to 20 minute conversation. So I'm not a huge fan of those profiles, but that's just for me in my line of work.
That's perfect. You're a natural at it. I think that's kind of the way that you have found success. And I can absolutely appreciate that. Actually, it inspires me a little bit because I have what they call disc blindness. So we've studied disc. We've talked about disc, and everybody's like, oh, you're an I, you're a D, high D, low C. I'm like, what are you saying? Because again, I'm kind of like you in that I'm wired to just connect with the person, kind of get a read on them, and then use the power of discernment to figure out what it is they need. I think that's a gift of mine. I don't know that I'm necessarily the best person to do the disc, even though that's a big part of what Focal Point holds up as like the end-all be-all communication tool. So I need to get better at it. I think part of it is that I haven't invested enough time in really studying it and learning it and using it. But I'm with you. I think it's it's absolutely possible to have good conversations with people without knowing what their disc profile is.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult to deduce people to keywords and pie charts. Personally, I'm sure that many companies out there, especially for people who are listening to this and really disagreeing with me because giving their employees a disc profile helps them create the teams they need to be successful. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are disagreeing with me, and that's okay.
The
But
high
I think
C's. Yeah.
it's very difficult to deduce people to keywords and pie charts because with that type of data, a lot of assumptions can be made. And I do believe that people can grow and change over a very short period of time. So if Joe Schmo enters into your company and takes behavioral test, holding him to what those results are may prohibit him from being able to shine in certain ways as he grows and develops and changes over the course of a year or two. So again, I know this is probably controversial, but that's just how I think of it.
It's absolutely fair, not controversial at all. What are some practical strategies that you think executives can use to strengthen not just the networking with external people, but like on their teams, the internal networks within their organizations?
That's a good question. I think checking on people arbitrarily without going in and asking for something is something that we should practice more because you always like pop into someone's office when you need something like, hey, quick question. Like, hey, did you see this? Or, hey, what do you think about that? It's always business related. And I get it. We're all really busy and we want to be effective. But I would say make a little bit more of an effort to check on people that has nothing to do with the productivity of business. Like, it doesn't have to be, hey, how was your weekend? Sometimes that can be a really heavy question to get on a Monday morning. Like, really? Like, sometimes I hate getting hit with that question. Like, how was your weekend? I'm like, we had a weekend? Like, what? Over my head. But just being like, how are you? And then pausing and really letting the person expand on that. Like, how are you though? How are things going? I think that can help us build relationships with people and also give them that energetic understanding of like, I care about connecting with you, by the way.
We had a vice president of engineering at Toyota when I was there, and he's probably still there. He's probably a chief by now. But he didn't have like greatest social skills. And that's fair. That's pretty common in engineering circles. But his were like interesting in that he would want to develop a tool that would let you like get a sense of an operator's morale like digitally through networking and sensors and tools and cameras and all that. And I was just like, Josh, I think that's just a conversation that the leader needs to have with that operator. I don't think we need to necessarily design a solution for that. That's just that's a people thing. That's a leader thing. And it was just,
True.
I think, funny as you describe that now. It's funny to think that maybe that was just kind of a side effect of his own leadership gaps.
I also find we might get into some deep waters here, but in having coached so many CEOs
I'm a lifeguard.
and COOs, I have coached so many leaders across so many different industries and all over the country that I do find that the more you delay a tough conversation, the more of a mess it makes and the harder it is to have that conversation. My fiance always says the tough conversations are the ones you need to have first. And that's to quote Dante Crowther. He says that all the time. He even says that to me in my personal life. And I love hearing it because, like I said, I've coached a lot of executives who come to me and they say, oh, this person on my team, ... And I say, well, what have you talked to them about? I haven't really addressed it. Or if they have addressed it, it's something very like sugar coated or it's very much in passing. Like it never really gives the person a direct understanding of where that individual is actually at. So I do find that leaders who delay the inevitable, it ends up creating more of an issue and then it's harder to address, especially because if you sit me down, you're my leader, and you sit me down and you address something to me, and I've been doing that thing for 7 weeks, I'm thinking, Well, now I'm embarrassed because why didn't you just say it? It wouldn't have been a thing had you just let me know. I wouldn't have kept doing it. So I do think leaders have a level of responsibility, professional responsibility to have tough conversations. You don't have to make tools to solve problems when it comes to people. You just have to have some good, well thought out conversations.
Yes. So good. And I love the part, your quote, forgive me, I don't remember his name, but have the hard conversations first. I can relate that to Focal Point and Brian Tracy. Eat the frog, find the thing that is like the most just unappealing to you first thing in the morning and just get it done. Get it out of the way, knock it out, and then move on to the lesser intimidating things. Because once you have the momentum that you're building from knocking out the hard part first, you're going to be free to do a lot of more great work before a day is over.
Amen.
I have a question. Why depth over breadth when we're talking about building an executive's brand and a connection with a community? Speaking of deep waters.
So I think that one of the best strategies or practices an executive should probably evaluate on a year-to-year basis is just how unique they are with all of the hats that they wear. I can't tell you how many people I meet who wear many hats. You do not get into an executive level seat unless if you are multifaceted and multi-talented. So when it comes to depth, not breadth, it's about showcasing your variety and making sure that people truly understand just how deep and wide your talents can go and not just overly highlighting the one category. So let's say, for example, you're a CTO. Okay, everyone knows you're really good at tech. Your whole brand does not need to be tech related because you might also be a really good leader and a really good marketer. You might also be phenomenal in operations because the tech platform that you built for the company has a ton of data that you're able to see and process and work alongside the chief operating officer. But that's neither here nor there. When a CTO that has a wide variety of these skills, their branding really should showcase that variety. You don't want to box yourself in just because you're in a particular lane.
Too good. I'm a fast driver, so I don't know if that's depth or breadth, but I like to stay in that left lane and just get on to where I'm going. Brittany, a future-looking question. Wrapping up here, we're coming to close to the end. A couple more questions, but thank you so much again for being here. Fantastic. What will networking look like for the next generation of executives?
Don't fall to the floor. Audience members who are listening to this who love AI. I think the next generation of highly valuable executive networking is in-person networking. There's companies out there like, I think it's called Boardy AI or Boardsy AI. I'm saying it wrong. Sorry, I'm not an affiliate, but I know a lot of people use it. People actually have really raved about that type of platform. And essentially what it is it matches you with people around, I think, even the world, because they have moved all of their communication over to WhatsApp. It uses AI and profiling to pair you with people that they think would make a good match for you for networking. And I've heard really good things. But I think the more we step into a world of AI, the more we are going to crave real, raw, authentic experiences. And I want to tell you this story super, super fast. I just got back from a work trip in Alabama. I live in Massachusetts, and I had to take a double flight to get home, a connecting flight to get home. And I'm sitting at the terminal with my colleague, and he was taking a flight 2 hours before me. So I was just kind of hanging out with him in the terminal. And I get a message on my phone 10 minutes before he's about to board his flight. And it says my flight is canceled and they want me to stay over in Washington, D.C. for like 16 hours. That's not going to happen. So I go up to the ticket booth. I'm like, is there any chance I can get on this plane with my colleague? We're going to the same place. And, lo and behold, they go, boop, boop, boop. Yes, there's a seat open on the plane. I get that seat on the plane. The gentleman sitting next to me is the business owner of a company that my company has been really excited at the potential of doing business with.
Oh, look at that.
Bet your bottom dollar, he and I talked from the moment we sat down until the moment that plane landed, and then some. And we had such a phenomenal conversation. And turns out his daughter and myself have so much in common. We grew up in the performing arts. She owns a dance studio. My family used to own a dance studio. And it's really those moments that can never replace getting on a Zoom networking call with someone for 20 minutes. So I think that the future is going to start to swing in the direction of in-person meetings because people will feel this type of magic that cannot be replicated with technology.
I so 100% agree with that. I think there is something irreplaceable about being able to sit with someone, to look them in the eye, not over a camera and a screen, but truly in their eye and just have that conversation with them. We had a conference for Focal Point, the first national conference that I've been able to attend with them. It was in Boston this year, and so Massachusetts. There was a coach that was bringing his client on stage for just like a Q&A session. They had been working together for 3 years, and that moment at the conference was their first time meeting in person. And I found that absolutely extraordinary that they could develop a relationship that strong completely virtually. I think that is a really difficult thing to do. And I'm blessed as a coach that has global reach that can do that. But also, I think I wouldn't wait 3 years to meet a client. I would find a way to just get to them and just let's have a dinner or a lunch and let's get to know each other.
Absolutely.
Brittany, the last question is the title question of the Making More podcast. It goes like this: making more blank is most important to you in your life at this point.
Making time for myself is the most important thing for me to move forward. Making time for myself looks like reading the Bible, listening to a podcast probably related to something around the Bible, or just personal improvement in general. That to me is everything right now because I have worked so hard in my career and I have spread myself very thin. And it was not until fairly recently that I realized that there is so much productivity in doing next to nothing. And that needs to happen more frequently in my life. Those are the moments where not only can I recharge mentally, physically, emotionally, but those are the moments where I have my best aha moments. So creating that space in the time that I provide for myself is making more.
It's so true. There's so much that happens in the quiet serenity of doing nothing. Or for me, it's swimming laps at a pool, and just taking that time for just the brain to catch up with the busyness. Like you said, we're so busy, and we just need that time to just process. And it's such a joy when it's those times that lead to the sparks that we needed, that gives us that motivation to carry on. And like you said, I think if there's a podcast that you're looking for, if you're looking for a new one, Father Mike with Ascension is starting a new one on the imitation of Christ. And I've got, it so happens, a little copy of that came from my grandmother's house. We got it out of my mom's storage unit a few years ago, and I just kind of kept it, and I kind of flipped through it every now and then. It's just chock full of prayer cards and little knickknacks that my mom, she would notoriously tuck pictures and everything into books, and this is no exception. But he's starting a podcast on that very book, and I'm excited to get to walk with him through that for like 30 days. I think it's going to be great. So for the listeners and for you, check that out.
Oh my gosh, that is so exciting. I will say, since we've really talked about faith and everything, I will be very shortly releasing a co-hosted podcast for my walk with Christianity. I will say that it's not corporate, it's not executive. I'm really trying to separate it from my career and just do it as a part of my ministry. But if anyone that's listening is interested in a feminine-centered walk with Christ, my friend and I, Olivia, we are going to be putting out a podcast called At the Feet of the Father very soon. It will be available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so definitely be on the lookout for that.
Thank you for that plug. That's perfect. And I know I'm going to share that with my wife even before this episode airs, and we're going to get a sneak peek of that. So thank you, Brittany. That's fantastic. How else can our listeners connect with you and the work that you're doing?
Okay, so the best way to connect with me is absolutely LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn, and I've been waiting for them to give me a call and ask me to be their mascot, but they haven't yet. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I wish I knew my URL by heart, but I'm sure you can link my LinkedIn URL in the
I
description
will
below.
absolutely do that. Yes, I will absolutely do that. We'll have that ready to share on the episode notes. And once again, everyone, Brittany Fowler, thank you so much for the time. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Making More. If today's conversation sparked something in you, let's connect. You can find me on LinkedIn and Threads at Coach Fisher FPT, or by visiting billyfisher.focalpointcoaching.com to learn more about how I help leaders create clarity, build momentum, and make more of what matters. This recording is copyrighted by Engineered Consulting Incorporated. Until next time, take care.